Hello, my friends. How are you doing? I hope you are all having an amazing day. You might say, Heather, why are you alone? Well, I'm just waiting for Sylvia. I'm just waiting to see, get her into the room. Hopefully, she is not having any problems getting in. But I thought I don't want to leave you hanging. I'm going to come and have a chat with you and see how you're doing. You might notice that I've got an accessory today that I don't usually have. And depending on where you're watching from, this might not be happening to you. But today, so it has been quite warm here. I'm going to give you the temperatures in Celsius because I don't know what they are in Fahrenheit. So it's been upwards of like 25, 30 degrees Celsius here. And then last night it went down to something like 5 and it got really cold. And it was actually snowing earlier when I was looking at the window. Let's just say shocked, right? So it's very strange. It was very strange, but just going to go with the flow. Dig my hat back out of the closet, get my scarves back out until it goes back to being a summer again. So today, hopefully, I'm going to be joined by Sylvia Plester-Silk. Just checking my emails to see if she's trying to send me a message. And Sylvia, I met her, interestingly, through someone who came to one of my free webinars on productivity, referred me to her because she thought we would be a good fit. And such an interesting person, such an interesting person. So I'm going to just check over here. Yep, no, she's still not here yet. So she is an intuitive counselor, and she integrates traditional therapy with Akashic readings and energy work, which I think is just so interesting that she's kind of combining. She originally did social work in Ryerson back in the late 90s, and she was working for different agencies, community agencies, and she was helping people through addictions and mental health and trauma. And she thought it was really powerful and amazing, but she found that when she added the energy work in, that she had the biggest shift in people. Um, and she started doing lots of studying into energy work and started working in mental health agencies to help people. And since 2004, she's been working with people and helping people kind of, she calls it living your life, which is on purpose, living your life on purpose. And she went to Machu Picchu, interestingly, in 2019, which I find interesting because I went to Machu Picchu. It's such an amazing place. I know we can't travel right now, but I still dream of traveling all the time. And she got lots of insights there. And so she's helping specifically, women, but discover their life as so they can feel fulfilled. And she uses the energy work to kind of inform that practice, which I think is amazing. And let me just see if she's on. If you have questions, by the way, you can always pop them in the comment box. I will see them. Um, Today has been an unpredictable technology day. I was teaching yoga this morning. I still teach yoga every week. And one of my students vanished in the middle of class. And it turned out that her internet died in the middle. So I don't know if it's to do with the weather or whether it's to do with, I don't know, it was a lunar eclipse, not a solar eclipse. Do lunar eclipses affect the internet? I don't know. Um, but I'm still just checking to see where Sylvia is. I'm not sure oh, wait, she can't get in. And I'm in and cannot see or hear. Let me go to, one moment, friends. I'm going to send this over to Sylvia and see if she can find this. There's always something, right? There's always something. Oops. So while you're thinking of what questions to ask, I'm just going to send this over. Oops. There we go. see if that helps. Uh-huh. Oh, there she is. Hold on. Yay! You found us.
The challenge, I'm on my phone because I'm at my cottage, and
Shh,
I
don't tell
didn't see the
anybody.
bottom part.
Right?
Exactly. It's a big secret.
Don't tell anybody. Well, I just totally like built you all up and told people how amazing you were. So
Okay. And then she doesn't show up.
I
That's
was like,
great.
she's coming. I know she'll be here. Let me tell you all about her. We had this great conversation the other day. And how cold is it where you are?
It is about 5 degrees.
Right? Look, I'm wearing my hat. I'm wearing my scarf. That was very shocking. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know what the heck is going on.
I'm just grateful I don't have snow, because apparently other parts of Ontario do have snow today.
It snowed this morning while I was teaching yoga.
Wow.
Right here in Toronto, there was snow going by. So I gave them a little bit of an introduction, but um, I I wanted you to be able to kind of explain how you went from social work into the energy work and give it kind of some more depth and information and why you think the energy, I mean, we're speaking specifically for, I mean, we can talk about anything. As you know, the last time we talked, it just kept going and going. But I know, right? So, kind of energetic self care, because I find people, whether they're sitting at home and doing nothing or whether they're working, everybody's getting really drawn and drained. And I see people being angry who are not usually angry. And it's just so interesting. So maybe something we can talk about. And maybe if people have questions, I see people, if you have questions about it or curiosities, that would be super awesome too. And if we can help people along the way, even better.
I'm game. So, how did I get into this?
Yeah.
I um, so 26 years ago this month.
You were 10, right?
Yeah, let's go with that story. I was co-leading a group at a private psychiatric hospital, and I had a headache.
Oh,
And I had this beautiful volunteer that I was working with, and she said, "Oh, I just learned this thing called therapeutic touch, and I do help you with your headache." And I'm like, "What?
right.
I don't think so. Like, what kind of crap is that?" I was a skeptic. I thought it was a whole crock of crap. But in my sort of patronizing self, I said, okay, because I thought, well, she's really kind. She'll never hurt me. And so within about 30 seconds of her starting this thing called therapeutic touch, my head ache felt like it flew out of my head.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so, boom, I went from being 100% skeptical to what just happened and I need to learn more. So in May, 26 years ago, I enrolled in my within 2 weeks of that experience, I was sitting in my first therapeutic touch class.
Wow. You take action.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've been accused of being an implementer. And and I had a pretty remarkable experience. So when you're taking therapeutic touch, they have you sense each other's energy by holding hands over top of one another. And I got paired up with this woman I'd never met nor seen before. And it was great, lovely lady. I put my hands over her and I had pain radiate up my shoulders. And
Wow.
I can say to this day, thank goodness, I have never experienced that amount of pain. And I pulled my hands back and I yelled to Evelyn McKay, who was our instructor, Evelyn, what am I doing wrong? And
Nothing.
Evelyn came over and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "You're doing nothing wrong." And she said, looked at my partner and she said, "Are you going to tell her or shall I?" And I'm like, "Tell me what?" And I'm like, "What's going on here?" My partner had chronic pain.
Oh, right.
And that was the second at which I realized I'm an empath.
How
So
could you not
all
have known all that time?
So I've been carrying around a whole bunch of stuff that didn't belong to me for my 10 years, or what did you call me, 11, up
Yeah.
until that point. and and so I went, oh, and then I started to realize, because I'd had odd experiences, but I was never able to say what they were. Like, it was just weird. And again, while working at the hospital, and you try not to go psychotic when you're in a
In
psych
hospital.
hospital, right? But
Right. Okay.
so
They won't let you leave.
I was sitting in this meeting, and the person to my left had just gotten some really amazing, great news, and they were floating, like they couldn't be happier. And the person to my right had just gotten some horrible news and was
Whoa.
really angry and upset. It felt like my body was split down the half. This side was floating and this was pulled down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am losing my crap in a hospital. And if anybody finds out that I'm having this experience, I don't know what'll happen. And
Right.
by the way, I was a staff member, just to keep that in mind.
Right. You were just
Um,
sitting there.
yeah, but I knew that I had awareness that this weird thing was happening, but I had no construct to
Was this
define it.
after your class? Oh, it was before your class. Oh, okay. So you didn't even
Yeah,
have context.
exactly.
Okay.
So I was able to then go back and go, oh, okay, yeah. And then I honed the skill, or so I thought, and I could go in to a room, and if somebody had a headache, for an example, and not just headaches, but I'm using that for example, I'd be able to say, oh, somebody's got a headache and it's in this part of their head and it's throbbing. And I used to do it a bit to freak people out. It was just a little bit of sport, frankly.
You're like,
And I remember my coworkers came stomping back to my office and said, how did you know that? Because I described her headache to the
right.
T. And so I let her in on my secret. Because back then, working in mental health, we didn't talk about this stuff. It
No.
was woo-woo. It was weird. It was like you were off your rocker. And it took a long time for me to actually be proud that I have this natural ability,
Right.
right? So I continued to study. I did therapeutic touch. I became a therapeutic touch practitioner. I started to teach. I learned thought field therapy, emotional freedom technique, BOSS, it used to be called, is now the STEEL technique. Authentic healthy awakenings. I took regression training. I took channeling training. You name it. From
You've taken stuff
19,
I haven't even heard of, which is amazing.
yeah.
Right.
I did some Reiki. You name it. So between 1995, when it started, and 2004, I never stopped. I was always in some kind of course. I just had this hunger to learn more and know more. And along the way, I started to integrate some of the work that could do carefully. And
Right.
I did some negotiations. So when I was at the hospital, I negotiated. I was the only non-nurse that was allowed to use therapeutic touch in the hospital.
Wow. And you had to
Because I'm,
negotiate that because
so
what are
I
you going
was
to do?
well, because as a social worker,
Mm.
anything that has touch related to it is a ooh, ooh, ooh,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
And so then when I worked at the community mental health clinic a couple of years later, I brought in TFT, which is the precursor of EFT, emotional freedom technique, and I did sort of a little bit of research. But the people that I did it with had great success. But my colleagues and the psychiatrist that were referring them was saying it was an experimental treatment. Who puts their heads up for an experimental
Right.
treatment in the mental health system? Let's tell you, it's not been a safe thing to do in the past. So you don't want to do that, folks, right?
Right. You don't
Um,
know electric shock therapy, like all those things they used to do?
They still do that, actually, Heather.
What?
Mhm.
Oh
They
my,
use they use it for extremely chronic depression that they
wow.
can't get resolved in another way. So it's very much a last ditch effort,
Right.
and not used lightly like it was back
No
in the
kidding.
60s.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so that's how I got into it. And then I started, I think it was again in 1995, that was a banner year for me of change. I started a private practice because I just needed a little bit more ownership and freedom to see clients the way that I felt was the best practice.
So it wasn't experimental.
It was, they could have said it was experimental,
Right.
but I had permission then from clients to do this work.
Right.
And what I found was instead of talk therapy, where we talked about things and people might feel better in the minute, it held, and
Right.
people would feel better for weeks. We would do trauma work, and all of a sudden they would be thinking differently about themselves. They wouldn't be so angry with themselves. They wouldn't be so filled with shame or hurt or fear. And they could start making healthier boundaries and healthier choices for them. And
Right.
so that's how I integrated it. By 2004, I said, I'm not working at an agency anymore. I'm going to just work for myself. And I opened my own practice full time, which I did from 2004 to 2010. Decided I needed some change, went out and did some consulting work. And then in 2019, I had this brilliant idea at the age of 55 to do a 5-day hike to Machu Picchu. I'm not an athletic person. I have never been an athletic person. I will never be an athletic person. But I tell you, that trip pushed me to the depth of myself and
Did you
taught me.
go did you do that whole hike? Like
Hmm.
over Dead Woman's Pass?
So I took the Salkantay trek.
I don't know which one that is.
It's a newer trek.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so I don't think we passed through that one. And yeah, so it taught me to trust myself, my energetic guide, not my physical guide, Edwin, but my energetic guides. When I thought I couldn't go further and I knew I had another 3 hours to camp, just said, take one more step. Just
Right.
keep taking one more step. And so I made it to camp. I traveled with a person who wasn't who I thought she was and
Oh,
was a bit of a challenging companion during the trip. And she showed up perfectly because I learned at a soul level that I'm not responsible for anybody else.
that's a lesson that I think a lot of therapists need, right? Just
Uh,
speaking from my own experiences.
yeah,
There's
how
you
often do we try and take over for somebody, right?
we want them to be happy and healthy, and we will, sacrifice ourselves to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had a lunch and learn when I was in massage school, and somebody tried to tell us that, but there's so much going on in massage school, a 1 hour lunch and learn. You're like, oh, that lady was so interesting. And then you're going to learn pathology and it's gone
Yeah.
until you're in that situation where you're thinking, what just happened to me? Someone hit me with a bus,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I had learned that lesson as a social worker like 3,000 times, but I didn't learn it at a soul level. I
Right.
didn't really get it, if you will.
Yeah.
And I had this experience where, like I remember really early in my career, I was working with women assault prevention. That's what it was called back in the ages.
Right.
And
WAP.
yeah,
What an acronym.
oops, oops. Maybe that's why they changed it.
Maybe.
Um, and I had a woman I was really, really concerned about. I worried about her all weekend.
Oh my
I
gosh.
came back. She had reconciled with her husband. She was fine. Now she went back into an abusive relationship. But I lost a weekend of my life. And none of my worrying and obsessing helped her one bit. All it did is exhausted me. So I
Right.
kind of thought I'd learned that lesson and I had it. And when I learned it on the trek, I learned it at such a deep level that I don't think I'll ever be that sort of codependent over helper again.
Right.
It's like, if you want my help, I'm here. But if you don't want my help, don't waste your time and my time.
And that's a super intense way to learn it on, like, I don't know what the trek was like for you, but um, there were days I was just like, everybody stay away from me when I was on that trek. I just needed to like my own, just to be internal, stop cheering me on, please.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's intense. It's intense.
And no one really prepares you for going down the mountain.
Oh, right. It's funny. I actually liked going down the mountain. I
Oh,
flew down the mountain. Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah. It's funny. It was an interesting comparison because going up the mountain, I really struggled. I really struggled. And there were people who were just like gone and they would wait for me at the top, trying to be helpful. When we were going down, I got to the bottom. I'm like, I can go down so easy. Well, I could back then. I was in my 30s then. So,
Yeah. I went, let me just tell you that I went down 3 times, as in on my butt
mm,
during my descent. And it was extremely hard on my body. It was
right.
hard on my knees. It was hard. Like, I was just absolutely exhausted.
You
And I
didn't fall
still
off the
had,
mountain. So,
no, thank goodness, because there's some places you could.
I know. I know. But
Yeah.
it is an amazing place too, right? It's just so it's hard to describe, like, what it is. I mean, you can look at the pictures of it, but it's just
No, it's something about being out there in that energy. I think it's an energy vortex. I think
and I
probably
think
all of Peru is.
yeah, and I think having to do the work to get there versus taking the train to get there makes it somehow different. Like it's almost like you had to do a pilgrimage. Like
Hmm.
I have friends who have done that, the Camino Trail.
Oh, yes.
And, it's like that pilgrimage, that kind of, I'm going to walk there because there is a process that has to happen from here to there instead of
Hmm.
the shortcut. I mean, right now I feel like everybody wants a shortcut. Everything is hack this, hack that, hack this. But
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Let's get her done.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah, it's so good. And I mean, it's how amazing is it that we can still learn things as no
Hmm.
matter how old we are, right? We can still
Exactly.
I can still keep evolving. Come on. I'm gonna keep evolving until I'm energetically moved on,
Exactly. In
right?
your next existence
In
to
my
evolve.
next yes, in the next plane of existence. And then I'll
Yeah.
evolve there.
Exactly.
Very cool. So
Yeah.
now so you already had your private practice when you went and did Machu Picchu, right?
I had closed it down.
Oh,
And I
why?
came back from Machu Picchu. I was just ready for a change. I'd had a few experiences with really challenging clients, and I thought, I'm not passionate. I'm moving on.
That's fair.
So I did consulting for 10 years with nonprofit leaders around team dynamics. And then when I came back from Machu Picchu, my guides kept saying to me, you're going back to social work. You're going to do some trauma work. They need your help. Get out there and get it done.
Now that you've done your pilgrimage, it's time to
Exactly.
keep going. It's time to move.
So literally every day for 2 weeks, I got a message that was like being yelled at, that I had to return to this work, that I had to get my registration in social work back, that I had to go back to doing the energy work, that I was to go back and do the Akashic readings again.
Oh, right.
And so here I am. And I was like, I came back begrudging, to be
Really?
really frank and honest. And I have felt such joy in the work since I've been back. So I am so grateful that even though I was kicking and screaming, I still did it.
Go to the party. You'll have fun, right?
I've been to that party before.
That's
But
awesome.
there's something about not, even though I give my clients 100% of me when I'm with them, I'm not responsible for them. I don't. So it's up to them to choose. Do they want to do the homework? Do they want to do the work, or don't they?
Right. And what percentage of people do you find will step up and do it?
100% of my clients, because if you won't, I won't take you on as a client.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Pre-screening, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess that also saves your energy
Mhm.
because they are going to do it. You don't have to put any energy behind them to try and, push them along at all. So so I'm thinking about, so like as a massage therapist, I don't get to pre-screen my clients on who's going to take care of themselves. It's like,
But you know what, Heather? I think that's a mindset challenge that I'd like to challenge.
okay, tell me.
Because I think that as an RMT, you have the right to say, I will treat you or I will not treat you. I think that you have an obligation to yourself and to your self-care to not take on clients, or once you know that they are disrespectful of you or not appreciating of you, refer them out, because there's somebody else.
Your voice just went a little.
Sorry, I
That's all
just
right.
got a phone call. I forgot. Anyway,
Technology.
and so I've just lost my spot. I'm so
It's
human,
okay. I
Heather.
can tell you where we were because you were saying, so massage therapists, we actually can refuse to treat people, but we have a duty of care. You can't abandon people. You have to give them um, as another venue, another place to go. So it's like, I'm not allowed to say, no, you're on your own. But at the same time, you will find, and it probably is a mindset thing that most therapists, I think, feel like I can't say no, partly because, I need to take care of this person, but also partly financially, right? So it's like I need bills to pay. So if I say no to this person, people are going to find out that I'm not taking people, and then I'm suddenly homeless. I'm thinking of one of my exes was all about he was afraid of becoming homeless. So he wouldn't adventure. He wouldn't go to his passions because he was afraid of being homeless.
Right.
There was
And
no
that,
chance, but
yeah, except that when we say no to clients, the universe hears us and only sends us the clients that are going to work with us.
right.
And we tend to get busier practices because we care enough about ourselves to say, I work really great with this stuff and I don't work well with
Right.
this stuff.
Right. Right. And I guess being clear to your clients, but to your like being clear to yourself as well, right? Clear, like send that message and act that way. Do you
Right.
ever listen to Jim Fortin?
No.
Oh, he's a I guess he's a business coach. He's a life coach. His brother-in-law is a shaman. And so he gets quite esoteric in his podcasts. And he's always like, be, do, have. Be the person that you need to be. Do the things that that person would do. And then you will have what you should have.
Mm.
Right? Because he says, we do it all backwards.
Well,
He's
it's true, right? You think, oh, I'm trying to build a practice. I better take everybody on. No, take the ones that are fit for you. You're actually doing a disservice to the client taking on somebody you don't want to treat.
right. And yeah, I feel that sometimes, like when there's people who you don't want to see. And I feel like I'm afraid I'm transferring them, this like, ugh.
And
Do
you
you know what I mean?
probably are. And you
Probably am.
probably are. We've all had it, I think. I don't think I'm the only one, that you kind of get a sense that, you're not really wanted somewhere
Right, right.
and you don't want to be there
No,
as
but
a result,
some people I think
right?
are oblivious though, right?
Yeah. But imagine having somebody, so when you don't want to treat somebody, you're not 100% there and you want to be 100% there. And imagine what it's like for them, the client, when they have the therapist for them that's 100% there, that
Right.
wants to treat them.
So much better for them as well, right?
Yeah, we think, oh, it's unkind to say no. It's a gift to say no.
I think we've lost that somewhere in our society way of thinking,
Yeah,
right? That you
yeah,
need to say yes, 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 yes.
yeah. And I think
Interesting.
I suspect if you look back at your duty to care, there's a whole lot of conditions on that.
Right. It's interesting. I've been in Facebook groups where I can see therapists having this angst and asking, "Can I release this client? Can I do this?" And the older therapists are saying, "Yes." And but people are like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Should you? Should you?" But it's like if you feel like you should, then you should, right?
Yeah. Self-care tip number 1 from Sylvia. If you
Okay,
don't like
write it
them,
down.
get them gone. And it's not about like or don't like. Like if you've got somebody coming in and they're being disrespectful to you, no, you don't deserve that.
No, no.
Enough. If you've got somebody coming in and all they are is negative and then they complain about why it doesn't work and blah blah blah, go have them go to somebody else because they might have a different experience with another person. Don't
And
tolerate other people's garbage.
I mean, I think about therapists who work within a clinic setting, and you'll
Yeah.
see this quite often where they have to treat whoever the clinic says, and that a patient will complain, and the clinic will take the patient's side. So then the therapist, I mean, not only did they have someone who wasn't respectful and probably wasn't a good fit for them, but then they feel like the clinic is also, almost attacking them in some ways. You know, their expertise, their credibility, their
Yep.
professionalism. So that's hard for therapists as well. I mean, do you have any suggestions for therapists to work within the clinic environment? Smudging? Like
Well, one of them is make sure that you're working for an environment where you actually want to work. So don't get stuck working in a place that's draining you.
right.
There's a lot of places that are set up to make money off RMTs,
Yeah.
quite frankly, and make sure that you're getting back what you're putting in.
Yeah.
And if you're not, there's other clinics out there. And make sure that you don't sign a contract that has a non-compete clause.
They're
That is
illegal anyway,
but just stop it,
right?
right? Stop limiting yourself because somebody else has got an agenda to make money on your back.
Yeah.
So I'm not, some of you need to work at a clinic. That's because as you're building a practice and so on,
I started at a
you
clinic, right?
and so I'm not criticizing that as a way, but just look at different options. Put yourself in a place of choice instead of obligation of feeling like, oh, that's the only one I can go with. What else
Right.
is around? And look at your options and learn to negotiate.
Mhm.
No, I
Yeah.
don't like that split.
Yeah.
I'd like this split instead. Because sometimes when we ask for stuff, we get it.
Imagine. It's like,
At
"Yay!"
100% of the time, when we don't ask for stuff, we don't get it.
You don't get it. No, I know. Um, um, the clinic that I worked at, I mean, a clinic was a great place to start to build a practice and
Mhm.
experience, but I was surprised how many people don't read their contracts. They'll just sign it because they feel like so happy that someone hired them and they have a job. I'm like, "No, no, no. I gave them my finger waggle. No, 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 no. You need to read the contract and ask questions. I mean, it's okay to ask questions, right? Or it should be okay to ask questions.
And if it's not, then you're probably looking at a potentially abusive employer.
Right? Which is, I mean, not a good situation. Talk about draining from your clients, draining from your employer. So
Yeah.
when you need to recharge,
Okay.
say
All
you're
right.
in that situation where
Mm-hmm.
you haven't yet started to say no, or you're just starting to say no. So you still have some of those energetic things happening, and you haven't yet discovered your perfect place. You've asked the universe, it just hasn't delivered it yet. How do you keep yourself? I keep thinking of a Duracell battery. How do you keep
Okay.
yourself? How do you keep your copper top?
um, a good dye package. Oh, we can't do that right now in Ontario. Anyway, sorry. There's okay. So I have things for 3 parts of your day.
Okay. Okay.
So in the morning or as you're starting, make sure that you're grounded, right? And by
So,
grounded, I'll actually just take you through a grounding experience if that's
okay.
okay.
You knew
So
my question.
put I saw that face. I didn't want to get the waggle.
No, I'm the oldest
uh,
of four. I'm a good waggler.
so if everybody can put your feet flat on the ground, take some deep breaths, and just imagine from the balls of your feet that roots are growing down deep, deep, deep into the center of the earth. And if you're having trouble with that, imagine them going around growing around a large boulder. And just feel the difference in your body.
I use that at the end of my yoga classes to bring them back from wherever they went, right?
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
good. Yeah. And you
It's a
do that in
lot
the morning.
every morning.
Okay.
Okay. And then what I want you to do is set an intention for your day. Today is going to be a good day. My clients are going to be respectful and things are going to go well. I will say no when I need to say no. I will say yes when I want to say yes. So setting an intention of how you want your day to be. And then, especially if you're an empath like me, where you take on other people's stuff, and even if you aren't or aren't aware of it, because believe me, I was not,
Right.
is to imagine from the heavens, the universe, the sky, wherever your source of good is, that you have white light come around your body like a great big bubble and bubble just to under your feet. And the intention as you do this is that there's a safety zone. It's like putting a boundary around yourself. It's
Right.
not preventing you from serving clients in any way, but it's preventing you from taking on some of that stuff,
Right.
right? The big challenge for RMTs, probably even worse than therapists, if we're getting really honest, you guys are in their energy field 100% of your job.
Yeah.
And what happens is people have spontaneous releases, whether they're aware of them, whether you're aware of them or not. And those energies can go into your hands through the chakras in your hands very, very easily.
Right.
So, right? And so you really need to sort of bubble yourself and just think about it, protect yourself, or just putting a boundary, a nice boundary. Boundary feels healthier than protect. And then what you can do is if you're an empath and you know it, you can imagine as you're washing your hands, because I know you guys do this 3,000 times every day.
Yeah.
Imagine placing on imaginary rubber gloves
Oh, cool.
so that you can get in and you can do the work, but it does like a prophylactic. It doesn't the stuff you don't want doesn't get in,
Right.
right? And then each time you go back, so then between clients, each time that you go to wash your hands, you take off those imaginary gloves and toss them in the spiritual garbage and then put on another pair.
Cool. I like it.
So you're very careful that you're not transferring energy between clients either. Because if you've got one of those clients that you're working up to letting go, that's kind of miserable to deal with, and you got the best client ever coming in after them, you don't want to be transferring that.
No. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So wash your hands, change those gloves. And if you're feeling, you hit middle of the day and you've got that Mars bar breath, don't you have the Mars bar? Although
Okay.
as a chocolate addict, I can't preach what I don't practice.
Right.
Although Mars bars are not my drug of choice.
No.
But what you can do is imagine having an energetic shower. So imagine you've got a great big rainfall shower or a waterfall even, and imagine that energy is going in and around your body and just clearing away any fatigue and bringing in fresh, clean air and energy.
Nice. Can I have
And
the chocolate still?
Yes, you may
Okay.
have the chocolate. I always encourage you to have nuts with it because that's protein.
Right.
Anyway, and make sure that you take that shower all the way down through your feet again.
Do you use your hands like that?
You don't have to because you kind of look a little odd. I'm just
care.
doing it because I talk with my hands.
Right.
Right. And if it's helpful, use your hands.
Yeah.
It just helps remember. There's nothing
I'm just
wrong with
thinking like
that.
massage therapists are always doing stuff like that. Like it feels like a normal thing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Perfect. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
and I don't think
then.
anybody would think you were crazy in the staff room anyway. So
Yeah. And if they do, own your crazy and let them go. Because my crazy is my brilliance.
right.
I've learned, right? And then at the end of the day, change your clothes.
Oh, right.
Because next to your body is your clothing. As you change your clothes, you're actually taking off the energy of the day and releasing it. So think about, I'm letting go of all that stuff from the day.
Right.
Then you can have either another energetic shower, like I just spoke of, or a real shower or a bath. Just wash away the stress of the day, all those pieces.
Right.
And then I have a thing that I have written out because I do it so automatically that I have trouble remembering it. So I think I've got it.
Okay.
And so I say to myself, if any client energy has stayed with me today, let that be lovingly released to their higher selves at this moment, with the intention that it all goes back to their higher selves. And if any clients took my energy, if my energy went home with any of my clients today, may that be returned to me at this moment.
Right. I just had a little, Abdullah said, power shower.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. Love it. Yeah. And so what that does is it just brings back your energy and lets their energy go. So then you're free to live your life without carrying that burden.
Right. So, and I like that you're kind of lovingly releasing it. So you're not just like, here, take this back.
Yeah, you gave me this crap. I don't want it.
Right.
No, it's a care thing, right?
Yeah.
When we do things in anger, it is felt. It impacts the energy field of the other person.
Right.
Whether they're consciously aware of it or not.
Right.
When we do things from a place of love, there's clarity in that. There's beauty in it. It's saying, I love you and I won't take your stuff on because I know within myself you are 100% capable of dealing with that.
Right. And there was another one, wasn't there? Like you're releasing their energy and then
calling home your own energy.
Right. Because we talked about this when we talked before, and I thought it was so amazing. I was trying to remember what it was.
Yeah. So if any of my energy went home with any clients today, let that lovingly be returned to me at this moment. Yeah. And that's great if you've had an energy leak where you've gotten overly compassionate with somebody and you
Right.
felt bad for them or sorry for them. You've probably leaked some energy onto them and it's not going to help them.
Right.
So pull it back and do your own work.
Yeah.
Right? So you
Right.
know what your triggers are, you know where your vulnerabilities are.
And then, so I guess you can't necessarily stop that, but you can always like say, okay, that happened, but let's bring it back in and reset, do your reset button.
Yeah. And look at what happened. Like why did you do that?
Right.
Like what motivated it for you? Because it might be some issue that you keep playing out in your life that you could benefit from seeing somebody just to go through it and release it.
But, and isn't that like, so, duh, Heather, that's what you do, isn't it? Like you are helping people release the old stuff so they can stop doing it.
Absolutely.
Heather's
Yeah.
catching up. Heather's catching up. Right.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Because if we have a pattern where we're angry, like we've been abused by somebody and somebody shows up in our room with similar characteristics, but we're not consciously aware of it, it's exhausting and draining.
Right.
You work through that stuff, you understand it, you get rid of the trigger, and then you could just be with the client. It's all good.
And it's not the client, it's just something within you that's bringing it back up. Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Wow, that's very cool. And then how long do people usually work with you?
Usually about 3 to 4 months.
Wow, that's short. Think about how many years people spend in therapy,
Mhm. I
right?
actually don't believe in long-term therapy. I had a client say, we were finishing up the session yesterday, and she said, okay, well, I want to come back in 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't think so. Our work's done. Yeah, but let's just do one in case. I said, no, our
You
work
said
is done.
no.
See how it feels. And if you need me, I'm here, but I don't think you need me now.
Right.
She's
That's
totally
empowering too,
capable.
right?
Exactly. I'm not here. Well, I'm here to make money, but that isn't my first priority.
Right.
I'm so past having people dependent on me. It doesn't serve them well.
Right.
Having people see me for a very long period of time, that's not, I don't like to hold hands that much. And that's what it does. Where if I make a commitment to try and work with you in a 4-month period and have you out, you're going to I'm going to be so committed to doing everything that in my power to help you move forward in those sessions.
Right.
Where if I think I can just book you forever,
Yeah.
I don't have to be motivated to get you well.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you're not well, but to release this stuff and get you happier and more clear and conscious and with
And
more
able to
confidence.
self identify, self regulate, self whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of related, but not really related. But when I was getting physiotherapy on my shoulder, I remember my physiotherapist said, "Okay, you're graduated." I'm like, "What?" She said, "You don't need me anymore. Go off." And I said, "Wow, that's so amazing." I
Exactly.
felt so proud of myself that I was graduated and I could, go and be normal again.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Just
You're
keep doing your exercise, keep doing your clearings, keep doing your examinations as you would energetically, and come back if you hurt yourself again." So,
exactly.
and I think I like that approach actually, where it's like you get to graduate instead of just this long, endless road in front of you too. And I feel, I mean, I understand talk therapy has a place, and I won't discount any of them because I know a lot of them and I like them all. But I feel like for me, continually talking about it doesn't make it go away. It just keeps highlighting it and highlighting it and highlighting it. Or I'd rather just like clear it and move on.
Yeah, like I was working with a client yesterday, and I forget what the issue was. It was something around personal confidence. They had shut down.
Right.
And we went back to when she was 2.5 years old, to the moment she made a choice, looked at the dynamics of it, released it, so she doesn't have it anymore.
Wow, that's cool.
Right? And that's the work that I do.
And you can't always remember when you're a little kid the things that impacted you without some help, right?
Exactly, right? So she got pieces of it with her intuition. I got pieces of it with my intuition. And together, she was able to release it.
That's amazing. Whew, that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I do that's different than a lot of therapists is I'll sell you a package.
Right.
So you have a beginning date and you have an end date. And then you can say, sayonara, I don't want to see you anymore, Sylvia. Or you can purchase more sessions.
Right.
But some of my clients have said, I love that because I knew I had this period of time. I wasn't committed to 3 years of seeing you.
Right. And it's almost like when you have a deadline, it makes you a little more motivated to actually get to work. You're like, I've got a deadline. I've got to do this.
Yeah.
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 Instead
and
of
I've
just
now
open-ended.
Yeah, and I've now switched it, so I do also have the pay-as-you-go model as well, if people prefer that. Yeah, so it's that's what I do. My goal is for you to never need me.
Well, you've got a lot of work before people never need you, I think. Right? That's amazing. And oh, where can people find you, my friend? I don't want to keep, I know I'm cognizant of your time. I'm going to
My website is still, or no, it isn't. My website is on purpose transformations with an s.ca. And my email is Sylvia at onpurpose. Yeah, .ca.
onpurposetransformations.ca. And Sylvia.
Sylvia at onpurposetransformations.ca. Or you can just use the old phone and call me at 519-822-3776.
I'm not going to put your phone number in the chat box just in case.
That's okay.
Some crazy people, you know. We had
they've already called today, Heather.
Right. we had some YouTube trolls earlier that I was just ignoring. It's all good. Yeah. So I saw once that because someone that I know in one of my communities was getting upset that they were getting trolls. And I said, one of my coaches said, well, dogs don't chase the parked car. So it just means people are taking notice. They're not always the right people, but people are noticing. So
yeah, that's true.
Right. Wow, that's an amazing story. And those are some really good tools. So if you're because I saw people have been popping in and out. If you're watching the recording after, even go back to where she tells you the tools to start your day and to carry through your day, because those are what my friend Chris Skepcher calls writer downers. Writer downers. Thank you so much for coming to us, not from your cottage, from your beautiful home somewhere. And thank you for sharing your energy and your wisdom with us. And I truly appreciate it. It was really, really awesome. And if anybody has any questions, I've put your email in the chat box, or you can always, if they can't find it, they can always just DM me and I'll let them know how to find you.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Heather. I really appreciate the
Thank you.
airspace to talk, and it's always great to connect with you and have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again sometime soon, maybe in real life.
What? Let's hope.
It's going to happen eventually,
Yes,
right?
it is.
Awesome. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
Thanks. You too, Heather.
Bye.